Hi there, I'm Elizabeth with Ellie's Handcrafted Jewelry, and welcome to my channel where I share tips, tricks, and tutorials for those looking to learn the art of wire wrapping and wire weaving. And today I'm going to be showing you how to create this pendant using an oval cabochon and a couple gauges of wire. This is a beginner level, so if you're just starting out, this is a really good place for you to start. And if you'd like to learn more about wire weaving and just stay up to date with what's going on behind the scenes here, there is the Learn to Weave newsletter, which is available on my website. I have left a link in the description below for you to sign up. So let's get started.
But before we get started, I'd like to thank Cazdance for sponsoring this video. Cazdance is a gem seller located in the United States and has a variety of high-quality stones. Search by gemstone, shape, size, quality, and more to find the perfect stone for your project. I've left a link in the description below to their website as well as their Facebook page so that you can stay up to date on any new arrivals or sales. All right, for tools and materials, you're going to need an oval cabochon. This one is a 25 by 18 millimeter cabochon that I got from Cazdance. It is a green goldstone. You're also going to need 20 gauge wire for your base wires. And you're going to need 28 gauge wire for weaving. For tools, you're going to need chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and you're also going to need flush cutters. All right, so I've cut 4 segments of my 20 gauge wire. They are 8 inches long, and I'm going to set them here on my ruler just to determine the center. So center would be 4 inches. Just grab my little Sharpie here, make a mark just to give me reference. So now I'm going to show you how to add on here. So you start with one base wire, grab your weaving wire, and we wrap it around bottom base wire. This will be the bottom base wire, and I'm wrapping around 3 times to start. So I've wrapped around, and notice I've done that outside of the middle mark here. This is just a reference so I know where the middle is. Then I'm going to add another base wire on top of that. Line up that mark and find it. Now I'm going to wrap around this both base wires 2 times. And once I've done that, I'm going to bring this weaving wire in between the 2 base wires, like that. Bring it up, and then we're going to set another base wire on top, lining up with our mark, and wrapping around those 2 base wires 2 times. So once, bring it in between the bottom base wire and the second base wire, and up and over around those 2 base wires. And then we're going to bring the weaving wire in between those 2 base wires, like that. Now we can set the final base wire on top of that one. I'm going to wrap around both of those base wires a couple times. Like so. And then I'm going to bring it down and around the middle 2 base wires. So I'm going in between the bottom base wire and the second to last base wire, and then bringing it up and over 2 middle base wires. Now I'm going to do that again. Scoop my wire down, and then from there I'm going to bring it underneath the bottom base wire and around the 2 bottom base wires. And I do that 2 times. So there's our first little triangle. Now we're going to do that a couple more times. So bringing it in between those 2 bottom base wires, and then up and around the 2 middle base wires. Doing that again. Like so. Then in between those 2 base wires that we just wove together.
and then up, up and over the top 2 base wires. Sorry, my stand is shaking here. And then we're going to go down in between those 2 bottom base wires and up and over around the 2 center base wires. Do it again. Scooting that wire down. And then finally around the bottom 2, so bringing it underneath the bottom base wire. A couple times. All right, now we have 2 triangles, and we're going to just do that one more time, and I'll meet you back on the other side. And once I have my final triangle here, you can see I have 3. I'm going to secure the weave by wrapping around the bottom base wire 3 times. I'll wrap around once, and twice, and one more time. And pull this one over a little bit, tighten that, and there's our little weave. And you can either use your flush cutters to trim off the wire, but I like to do what's called a pull and twist method. So I pull, so I'm pulling with my right hand and then twist. And then that way it pulls the wire off and it doesn't leave any sharp ends hanging out. I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. So pull and twist. Just like that. From here, I'm going to go ahead and create a slight curve, so you can use your finger or your thumb to kind of help curve this down a little, making sure that the wires are sitting next to each other. The same on the opposite side. There's a little curve. So I got it curved around the bottom, and now I'm going to basically fold the wires around the cabochon. And do the same on the opposite side. Make sure to hold it in place. And then when I get that kind of where I want it, I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers. And I'm going to set it in here a little bit, and we're going to pull the wires down. And then when I kind of have it where I want it, I'm going to bend the wires up. I want to make sure that those wires are straight out though. So you can see I'm using my fingers to kind of bend this a little bit, kind of curve it. There's a nice spot for the oval to sit in. And I'm going to bend the wires up where these wires intersect. So I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers. You can either mark the wire before you do this so you know where it's kind of meeting at, or you can just kind of bend it up. The wires are together. Stick my little cabochon in there, make sure it fits, and it does. So now I'm going to grab my weaving wire again. And I'm going to wrap it around one of the front base wires here. So I'm going to wrap around 3 times to start the new weave. 2, 3. And now I need to secure all these wires together. So making sure that they sit next to each other as best as you can. It's a little more difficult with round wire. If you're using square wire, this will be a little easier. But square wire is not always the easiest to work with, so. All right, so now I'm going to wrap around all base wires 3 times to hold the frame together. And then bring it back over here around that same base wire that we started to secure it. So we're going to wrap at least 1 time. And if you want, you can scrunch this down a little bit. Be very gentle with your chain nose pliers. Now I'm going to set aside some wires here. Over there. So I got 4 on the right side that I set apart and 2 on the other side. And then the 2 front base wires I have left straight up. And this is what we're going to use to make our bail. And to do that, we're going to do a lashing weave. I'm going to wrap the weaving wire around this outer base wire 3 times to start. Once, twice, third time. And then we're going to wrap around both base wires. Oops, that's been wrapped around 3 times. So, around both of these base wires 2 times. And as we're going down on the second time, I'm bringing that wire in between the 2 base wires. So we have 1 set there. I'm going to scoot it down a little bit, very gently. Now I'm going to wrap the weaving wire around this outer base wire a couple more times. So now we have 3 there, and now I'm going to wrap around the 2 base wires again 2 times. And the second time I'm bringing it in between those 2 base wires and down. It gives us 1 around the outer one. 4 times. I'll show you 1 more time. So wrapping around both base wires. The second time around, I'm bringing it in between the 2 base wires and down. And you don't need to pull very hard, otherwise you'll pull your weaves out of whack. Just like that. And we're going to go ahead and continue doing that until we reach about 1 inch. Alright, so I've woven about another inch more. And at this point, I'm going to pull off this excess wire, which is the tail piece from our weave. Pull and twist. Grab my cabochon. Set it in there. Turn it over. And I'm going to set it in there now. So grabbing the very back base wire, I'm using my pliers to create a little spot for it to sit. Separate the other wire if I can get it. Do the same on the other side. So that sits in there. If it's still not sitting very well, or if it's trying to slip out of the front, you can actually bend these wires out. So let's see if I can pull that out. So you can, just at the very bottom where the weave meets, you can twist your pliers to the left while holding with your thumb. And then it'll help hold it in place. Do the same on the other side, going the opposite direction. So placing your pliers right up against the weave and twisting it to the right, holding with your thumb on the left to help hold that in place. Now it is common for round wire to shift a lot, so just be wary of that as you're doing that. Now once we have our stone in place, we can bend this backward to create our bail. You can also use a dowel or a pencil if you need something to mold it over. Okay, so we got that bent over. Now I'm going to wrap that around all of the wires that we just wrapped around earlier. Hold it in place. And then to secure that, I'm going to take this 1 back base wire and wrap it around 3 times. Like so. And do a little pull and twist. Like that. Now I'm going to leave these here for a minute, and we'll work on the remaining wires here. So I'm going to grab this furthest one to the front. That's here on the right with all the 4 wires. Use my thumb to gently curve it up and over and up against that wire like so. And I'm going to continue to wrap it around the other side. I'm going to trim that off with my flush cutters. Grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to tuck that in. So that's wire number 1. And now this wire, I'm actually going to show you how to do a single coil. And the way you do that is you take your weaving wire and you start to just wrap around this one base wire, this 20 gauge wire. And I'm going to start up here. Just continue wrapping around as close together as I can. Take your time. I'm just going to wrap a ways. You can scrunch the wire together with your fingernails. So if it's not perfectly close together, that's okay. You can scrunch it together. And scrunch it and continue wrapping. And you wrapped a little ways and scrunch that wire up. And if you want, grab your flush cutters, trim off the bottom tail wire, tuck that in a little bit with your chain nose pliers. And then I'm going to push that down to the end, like so. And I'm going to coil a little bit further, and I'm going to follow this wire with my coiled wire. Now I've coiled probably 1 inch and maybe 1/4 inch and a half, and I'm going to follow that previous wire. Make sure this is pushed down all the way first. Because when you pull on the wire, it might pull the coil, so just be aware of that. There we go. And around to the back. I'm just following like before, and I'm going to trim off the wire here with my flush cutters. Set them aside, tuck the wire in, and from here I can do a little pull and twist. And now we have a coiled wire there. So now I'm going to follow with the next bare wire, just like I did with the previous wires, using my finger to kind of help curve it down and around. Like that. And I'm going to drag it around, cut and trim, just like before. So we got a nice little trio here. And with this last wire, I'm going to actually curve the other way, inward, curving gently, like that. And I'm going to grab my flush cutters and I'm going to trim a little bit off, leaving a tail piece. I'm going to grab my round nose pliers here and create a little swirl at the end. Now you can notice I'm holding with my thumb to kind of hold it in place so I can work on the end. And slowly curling it in. So there's my little swirl. And at this point, I'm going to do another lashing weave over here. But before I do that, I'm going to trim these wires here. I'm going to trim them. Trimmed one more than the other a little bit. till they're even. Grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to curl them upward. So they're curled up like that, so they're out of the way and they won't catch on anything. And last but not least, I'm going to take these two wires and I'm going to weave them together. And I'm actually kind of going to work from the back because it'll be a little easier to access. Oops. So I'm going to grab my weaving wire here. Let's see, which way do I want to go? I'm going to wrap around the bottom base wire. And we'll do a little bit of a different version of the weave. So I'm going to wrap around 3 times around this bottom wire here to start the weave. Now I'm going to wrap around both base wires 3 times. Just to kind of show you how versatile this lashing weave is. And then around the bottom base wire 3 times. Then around 3 times. And you can do a variation where it's different times each time and try it out if you like that pattern better. And then around the bottom base wire 3 times. Scoot my wire down as I go. Now as you're doing this, you need to be sure that the other side looks clean because that's going to be the side that shows. So being aware of that. So wrap around 3 times. And around both base wires 3 times. I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to scoot that wire down a little bit. We can compress the weave if we need to. And just wrapping around 3 times. Around the bottom base wire 3 times. I'm just going to continue this pattern until I reach about 1 inch. Alright, so I reached about 1 inch, and here's what it looks like from the front. And from here, I'm actually going to follow along with those same curves, trying to keep this flat. If it does start to kind of fold in like this, just grab your chain nose pliers and gently turn it back out. Don't apply too much pressure because you'll break the weave. And so, going along like that. You can adjust, take as much time as you need to adjust. Bring it over to the side like so. And at this point, I'm going to just do a little pull and twist. Just get that out of my way. There's also one over here in the back still, so I'm going to pull that off. I'm going to grab my flush cutters and I'm going to trim off just a little bit here. There. So that's what, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to tuck this into my little frame. And the sides of the frame rather than going around the entire bale. You can see I've tucked it in there. Just like that. And you can adjust at this point if you need to. Also, I wanted to say about this little swirl, if you're concerned about it catching on anything, you can wrap a piece of weaving wire around it and secure it to the back. But here's your finished piece. And I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions at all, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below as I try to get to them as quickly as I can. You're also welcome to join the Facebook group where you can share your work and ask questions to fellow artisans like yourself. I've left all of this information in the description below. And until next time, happy weaving!